You people disgust me. Minimum wage trash, like you shouldn't even be allowed to touch our food." A 50-year-old woman in a $5,000 dress spat those words at me while her 2 adult daughters filmed it on their phones, laughing like hyenas. This queen bee Karen was treating me like a piece of garbage right in the middle of my own restaurant, except she had no clue I was the owner. While she was demanding the VIP table because she personally knows the owner, I was standing right there in my server's apron, documenting every second of her abuse on our security cameras. The impossible part: she was texting fake messages to the owner, me, while literally threatening to get me fired from my own business. This woman was so drunk on her own arrogance that she ordered $4,000 worth of our most expensive food and wine, all while calling me the help and making jokes about my pathetic life. By the end of the night, our security footage had captured everything. Her racist remarks, her threats, her daughters filming my humiliation for their social media. When I finally revealed who I really was, she went from queen bee to crying mess in 30 seconds flat. Her own father showed up, watched the footage, and made her pay every penny of that massive bill while apologizing to me in front of the entire restaurant. But that's just the ending. You need to hear how this entitled family destroyed themselves. I've owned Bella Vista for 8 years now. It's an upscale Italian place in the heart of downtown, the kind of restaurant where people propose, celebrate promotions, and spend their anniversary money. We've got a James Beard nomination, a wine cellar worth more than most people's houses, and a waiting list that stretches months ahead. The marble floors came from Tuscany, the chandeliers are genuine, Murano glass, and our head chef trained in Rome for 5 years under a Michelin-starred master. This isn't some chain restaurant. This is the real deal. We serve senators, celebrities, tech billionaires. The mayor had his daughter's wedding reception here last spring. But here's the thing about success. It doesn't happen by sitting in an office counting money. I learned that from my father, who ran a small diner for 30 years before I bought this place. He always said you can't manage what you don't understand, and you can't understand your business from behind a desk. So a couple times a week, I throw on a server's apron and work the floor. My staff knows who I am, obviously, but customers, they just see another waiter. You learn a lot about people when they think you're nobody. You see how they treat the help, how they talk when they think no one important is listening. Most people are decent, respectful. They say please and thank you, clean up after their kids tip fairly. But some people show you exactly who they really are when they think there are no consequences. That Friday night started like any other. The dinner rush was in full swing. Every table occupied the kitchen, humming with controlled chaos. I was refilling water glasses at table 4 when the front door opened, and in walked Trouble wearing designer clothes. Queen Bee, Karen, entered like she was making a grand entrance at the Met Gala. Designer everything. Chanel bag, Louboutin heels, clicking against our marble floors, a dress that probably cost more than my servers make in a month. Her 2 daughters trailing behind her like entitled shadows. Already looking around with that bored, superior expression, rich kids perfect by age 12. The hostess barely had time to greet them before complaints started flowing. I had no idea how much I was about to learn that night. "Excuse me, waiter." Her voice cut through the restaurant's ambient chatter like a knife dragged across fine china. She snapped her fingers, actually snapped them, to get my attention. "I need the VIP table by the window, the round one with the view. Move whoever's sitting there." I glanced over at table 7, our premier spot, positioned perfectly to overlook the city's twinkling lights. It was already occupied by the Henderson party celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary with their 3 children and 6 grandchildren. They'd made this reservation 3 months ago, specifically requesting this table for their special night. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but that table is reserved for guests who I don't think you understand." She stepped closer, invading my personal space, her expensive perfume overwhelming. Her voice dropped to that particular tone rich people use when they're about to pull rank, dripping with condescension. "I know the owner personally. We're very close friends, family friends actually. He'll want me to have that table immediately." The way she said it with such absolute confidence, such unshakable certainty in her own importance, almost made me laugh out loud. Here I was, the actual owner, watching her name drop herself to get special treatment. The audacity was breathtaking. But then she pulled out her iPhone with theatrical flair, holding it up like a weapon of mass destruction. "Let me just text him real quick. He always takes care of me. Watch this." I watched absolutely fascinated as her manicured fingers danced across the screen, typing away at her little performance. She angled the phone just enough so I could see the screen. Clearly fake messages to a contact labeled Michael Bella Vista owner. The messages were ridiculous. "Hey honey, can you get me the VIP table? Your favorite customer is here." She even added heart emojis. This woman was literally pretending to have a relationship with me, while standing right in front of me, creating fake evidence of a friendship that existed only in her entitled imagination. The sheer boldness of it was almost admirable. I watched her text the owner right in front of me. "Well, since my dear friend the owner is personally taking care of everything tonight, we might as well order properly." She settled into the VIP table like a conquering queen, claiming her rightful throne, spreading out her designer purse and phone like she was marking territory. The Hendersons had been graciously relocated to table 12 after I explained there was an urgent situation. They were understanding people, probably assuming there was some kind of emergency. Karen snapped her fingers at me again, the sound sharp and demanding. "We'll start with the Oyster Royale appetizer. The full dozen, not the half portion. Then the lobster bisque made with real lobster stock. Not that cheap imitation stuff some places use. And bring us your best champagne. The Dom Perignon, 2010. Properly chilled." I nodded politely, mentally calculating. We're talking $300 just for starters, and she was just getting warmed up. The main course requests came like artillery fire. The Wagyu beef, $200 per person, cooked exactly medium rare. And I mean exactly. If it's overcooked even slightly, you're making it again. The duck confit for my younger daughter, and the lobster thermidor for my older girl. Also bring us that truffle pasta as a side dish, and a bottle of your most expensive red wine to pair with the meat. Each item she rattled off was like another expensive nail in what would become a very costly coffin. But then came the moment that changed everything. She looked me up and down with those cold, calculating eyes as I took notes, studying me like I was some interesting specimen in a zoo. "You know what your problem is," she said, her voice carrying across the restaurant, like she wanted everyone to hear her profound wisdom. "This is exactly why you work minimum wage jobs. You lack attention to detail, ambition, basic intelligence. You probably didn't even finish high school, did you?" The way she delivered those words with such casual cruelty, like she was commenting on the weather or the quality of bread rolls. People like you just don't have what it takes to succeed in life. It's genetic, really. Some people are born winners, others are born to serve. It's not your fault. You just weren't blessed with the right DNA. Her daughters perked up at this little speech, sensing blood in the water, like sharks detecting a wounded seal. The older one, maybe 25, with her mother's same entitled smirk and dead eyes, laughed that particular rich girl laugh that sounds like breaking glass. "Mom, seriously, look at him. He probably lives in some disgusting studio apartment with 3 roommates and rats." The younger one early 20s, but already showing signs of terminal entitlement, joined in eagerly. I bet he takes the bus to work because he can't afford car payments. Can you imagine having to sit next to poor people on public transportation? They were both giggling now, holding up their phones, filming me discreetly, probably planning to post about the pathetic waiter on their social media accounts later. Poor people jobs are so embarrassing. I would literally rather die. The queen bee, Karen, leaned forward, then her perfectly veneered smile turning predatory, her voice dropping to a threatening whisper that somehow managed to carry to nearby tables. Now, listen carefully, because I'm only going to say this once. If you mess up our order tonight, if anything isn't absolutely perfect, if you give me even the slightest reason to complain, I'm going to have you fired. Do you understand me? One phone call to my friend the owner, and you'll be out on the street where you belong, probably ending up homeless like so many of your kind do. She paused, letting that sink in, savoring the moment. I have connections you can't even imagine. People who matter, people with real power. You're nothing to me. That's when she threatened to have me fired. Something fundamental shifted in me at that moment. Instead of the anger I probably should have felt, this strange, ice-cold calm washed over me like stepping into a walk-in freezer. These people wanted to play games with someone they thought was powerless perfect. I had 8 years of restaurant experience teaching me that the customer isn't always right. Sometimes the customer is about to learn a very expensive lesson. I decided to give them exactly what they wanted, the full VIP experience with all the premium pricing that entailed. Of course, ma'am, whatever you'd like. Let me make sure everything is absolutely perfect for your special evening. I smiled my most professional smile, the one that said customer service excellence, even when the customer was digging their own financial grave with a solid gold shovel encrusted with diamonds. And dig they did with enthusiasm that would have impressed professional excavators. Actually, you know what? Let's make this a real celebration. Add the grand seafood tower, the one with the whole lobster king crab legs and fresh oysters from both coasts. And another bottle of that champagne. No, make it 2 more bottles. We're feeling generous tonight. And every word out of her mouth was like music to my ears. The grand seafood tower alone was $450. The additional champagne, another $600. Oh, and the truffle risotto as a side dish. The one with the white Alba truffles, not the cheap black ones. And let's do the chocolate soufflé for dessert. 3 of them with that gold leaf garnish and the cognac sauce. They were ordering like money was no object, completely oblivious to the monster bill they were creating, with every breath, every demand, every show of their supposed superiority. Between courses, the abuse flowed like the expensive wine they were consuming. Look at how he writes our order, the queen bee, Karen announced to her daughters, making sure her voice carried to adjacent tables. Look at that handwriting. Probably never learned proper penmanship. Public school education, I guarantee it. Maybe even special education classes. She turned to include other diners in her impromptu lecture, gesturing at me like I was an exhibit in a museum of human failure. Isn't it tragic? The help these days just has no class, no breeding, no understanding of how civilized people behave. I try to be charitable to people like this. I really do, but honestly, some people just weren't raised properly. Her daughters nodded along like disciples receiving wisdom from their prophet of privilege, occasionally taking photos and videos to document their mother's performance for their social media followers. By the time I brought their cheese course, because of course they ordered the premium cheese selection with aged wines, the entire dining room had become aware of the ongoing spectacle. Other guests were staring, some looking genuinely uncomfortable at the public humiliation they were witnessing, others seemingly fascinated by the train wreck unfolding in real time at our best table. Servers had started finding excuses to walk by Table 7, pretending to clean nearby surfaces, while actually watching the show. Even our sommelier, usually unflappable, was shaking his head in disbelief. The atmosphere in the restaurant had shifted, becoming electric with tension and anticipation. That's when the Queen Bee Karen made what would prove to be her fatal mistake. She pushed back from the table, stood up with dramatic flair, and announced loudly enough for the entire dining room to hear. "This is absolutely unacceptable. I demand to speak to the manager. I demand to speak to the owner. Right now." I approached their table with our black leather check presenter, the weight of it substantial in my hands, not just from the leather binding, but from the devastating financial reality contained within its elegant pages. Inside was an itemized bill that would make most people's monthly mortgage payment look like pocket change. The document was a masterpiece of precision. Every premium ingredient, every bottle of vintage champagne, every luxury addition they had demanded was listed in meticulous detail. "Here's your check for this evening's dining experience," I said, placing it gently in front of the Queen Bee, Karen, with the same reverence one might show while presenting a rare artifact. She opened it with that same supremely confident smile she'd worn all night, probably expecting some modest amount that Daddy's platinum credit card could handle without triggering so much as a text alert. The transformation was instantaneous and devastating. Her confident smile didn't just fade. It was obliterated, wiped clean, like someone had taken an eraser to her face. $4,233.23. The numbers seemed to burn themselves into her retinas as her eyes went wide, then wider, then so wide I thought they might actually pop out of her head. She blinked hard multiple times, like maybe she was experiencing some kind of hallucination brought on by too much champagne. This has to be some kind of mistake," she whispered, her previous commanding voice now small and shaky. "These numbers can't be right." The daughters immediately leaned over like vultures descending on carrion, and I watched their faces go through the exact same progression. Confusion dawning, comprehension, shock, and finally, pure, undiluted horror. "Mom!" The younger one squeaked, her voice barely audible. "This says $4,000. 4,000 actual dollars. This is impossible." Karen's composure was cracking like expensive veneer hit with a sledgehammer. "Get me the manager immediately. Get me the owner, right now." Her voice was rising with each word, drawing even more attention from every corner of our dining room. "This is fraud. This is theft. This is completely unacceptable." She shot to her feet so violently that her chair went skidding backward, nearly toppling over completely. "I know the owner personally, and when he hears about this absolute incompetence, this criminal behavior heads are going to roll." The irony was so thick, you could cut it with one of our German steel steak knives. Other diners had stopped eating. Entirely, servers had frozen in place with water pitchers and wine bottles half raised, and even the background music seemed to have gotten quieter, as if the entire universe was holding its breath. The entire dining room had gone completely silent, now transformed into an impromptu theater, where every guest had become an unwilling audience member to our unfolding drama. Conversations had died mid-sentence. Forks had been set down on plates. Wine glasses remained untouched. Servers had stopped pretending to work and were openly staring. Even our kitchen staff was peeking through the service window, drawn by the commotion. The tension was palpable, electric, like the moment before lightning strikes. This was it. The culmination of everything, the moment I'd been building toward for the entire evening. I straightened my shoulders, looked her dead in those entitled eyes, and delivered the words I'd been saving up for hours, like ammunition in a perfectly crafted weapon. "Ma'am, I'm the owner of Bella Vista, and you owe me $4,233.23. The silence that followed was absolutely deafening. You could have heard a pin drop in the wine cellar 2 floors below us. Time seemed to stop completely. The queen bee. Karen's mouth opened and closed repeatedly, like a fish suddenly yanked out of water and desperately gasping for air. Her daughters looked like they'd been physically slapped their faces, cycling through disbelief, embarrassment, and dawning terror. The realization was hitting them in waves. Every insult they'd hurled, every threat they'd made, every moment of casual cruelty had been directed at the one person in the building with the power to make their lives truly difficult. And then, as the full magnitude of their situation finally penetrated their entitled consciousness, something beautiful happened. The mighty queen bee. Karen, who had spent the entire evening treating me like dirt beneath her designer heels, began to cry. Not just delicate tears, but ugly, desperate sobbing. Her carefully applied makeup started running down her cheeks in dark streaks, and she began begging, actually begging, right there in front of everyone. "Before we discuss payment," I said calmly, reaching into my apron pocket and pulling out my phone, "let me show you something interesting." I opened our security app. Yes, we have cameras throughout the restaurant, all connected to my personal device for real-time monitoring. Our surveillance system is quite sophisticated. High-definition video, crystal-clear audio, multiple angles. Every moment of your dining experience tonight has been recorded in remarkable detail. I turned the phone screen toward her, showing the footage from 3 different cameras. There she was in perfect 4K clarity saying, "Minimum wage trash, like you shouldn't even be allowed to touch our food." The audio was so clear you could hear every syllable of venom in her voice. The color drained from her face as I scrolled through more clips. Her daughters calling me disgusting and pathetic. Her threats to have me fired. Her fake text performance. Her lectures about people like me and breeding and proper DNA. Every insult was recorded in high definition, with timestamp accuracy that would make a forensics expert proud. The beauty of modern technology, I explained conversationally, is that everything is documented these days. Every word, every gesture, every moment of casual cruelty directed at what you thought was a powerless minimum wage worker. Now, I continued, my voice taking on that same calm professional tone I use during business negotiations. You have 2 very simple choices here tonight. Choice 1, pay your bill, quietly apologize for your behavior, and we can all pretend this unfortunate incident never happened. I'll delete the footage. Your payment will be processed discreetly, and you can leave with whatever dignity you have remaining. I paused, letting that sink in, while her daughters squirmed in their seats like children who'd been caught stealing cookies. Choice 2, continue making a scene, refuse to pay for the premium dining experience you specifically requested and received. And I'll be forced to take this matter further. The choice is entirely yours. But I should mention that choice 1 has a significantly better outcome for everyone involved. And she had 2 choices: pay quietly or make this worse. But the queen bee, Karen, true to her entitled nature, chose the path of maximum destruction. Instead of accepting graceful defeat, instead of recognizing that she was completely outmatched and outmaneuvered, she doubled down with the fury of someone who had never been held accountable for anything in her entire privileged life. "This is extortion," she shrieked, her voice reaching a pitch that could probably shatter our crystal wine glasses. "This is harassment. This is discrimination. You're targeting us because we're successful, because we have money." The irony was stunning. Here she was claiming discrimination after spending 2 hours discriminating against what she thought was a poor service worker. I'm going to sue you for emotional distress. I'm going to sue you for entrapment. I'm going to sue you for everything you own." Her threats were flying like bullets from a machine gun, each one more desperate and ridiculous than the last. "My lawyer is going to destroy you. You'll never work in this industry again." She threatened to sue me for emotional distress. That's when the restaurant's front door opened, and in walked a distinguished gentleman in his 70s, perfectly dressed in a tailored suit that screamed old money and established power. The moment the Queen Bee Karen saw him, her entire demeanor shifted from aggressive fury to desperate panic. "Daddy!" she called out, her voice cracking with relief and embarrassment. This was clearly her father, the source of all that entitled confidence, the man whose credit cards had probably funded this disaster. He moved with the careful dignity of someone accustomed to respect, his silver hair impeccably styled, his bearing suggesting decades of boardroom authority. But his face showed immediate concern and confusion as he took in the scene, his daughter and granddaughters in obvious distress, a restaurant full of staring patrons, and the unmistakable atmosphere of crisis. "Karen, what in God's name is going on here?" he demanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to getting immediate answers. Her father walked in just as she was screaming at me. I stepped forward before Karen could spin her version of events into some victim narrative. "Sir, I'm Michael Rodriguez, owner of Bella Vista. Your daughter and granddaughters have been my guests this evening, and there's been an unfortunate incident I think you should see." I pulled out my phone again, the security footage already queued up to the most damning moments. "This shows your family's interactions with me tonight. Please understand they believed I was just a waiter, not the restaurant owner." I handed him the phone and watched his expression change as he witnessed his daughter's true character in high definition. The first clip showed her snapping her fingers and demanding the VIP table. The second captured her calling me minimum wage trash with that casual cruelty. The third documented her daughters filming my supposed humiliation for social media. His face grew darker with each passing second, a storm building behind his eyes. "Karen Elizabeth Morrison." His voice was ice cold, using her full name like she was 12 years old again. The power dynamic in the room shifted completely as this dignified gentleman processed what his family had done. "Did you call this man trash? Did you threaten his job? Did you humiliate a service worker for your own entertainment?" Each question landed like a physical blow. Karen tried to stammer out excuses, but he cut her off with a gesture that brooked no argument. "Apologize, right now, to this gentleman and to every person in this restaurant who had to witness your disgraceful behavior." The entire dining room watched in stunned silence as this powerful patriarch dismantled his daughter's entitlement in public. "This is not how I raised you. This is not who we are as a family. You will apologize immediately and pay whatever you owe." He made her apologize to me in front of everyone. What followed was perhaps the most satisfying moment of poetic justice I've ever witnessed. The Queen Bee, Karen, who had spent the entire evening treating me like something she'd scrape off her designer shoes, was forced to stand before a restaurant full of witnesses and deliver a public apology. Tears streamed down her face, ruining her expensive makeup, as she choked out words of remorse that everyone knew were being extracted under extreme duress. I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I was wrong to treat you that way. I was wrong to say those things." And her daughters watched in horrified silence as their previously invincible mother was reduced to a sobbing, humiliated mess. Then came the payment, $4,233.23 charged to her father's Black American Express card, while she cried openly, her sobs echoing through our suddenly silent dining room. Every guest, every server, every busboy watched this complete reversal of fortune. She paid every penny, while crying in front of the whole restaurant. The aftermath was everything I could have hoped for, and more. Word of that night spread through the city's social circles like wildfire in dry grass. Apparently, when you publicly humiliate someone who considers themselves local royalty, the story takes on a life of its own. Within days, I was getting calls from other restaurant owners, sharing their own Karen horror stories, thanking me for finally holding someone accountable. My staff walked taller, smiled, brighter, knowing that their boss would never let them be treated like garbage again. Reservations actually increased as word spread about the restaurant, where entitled behavior gets you a $4,000 reality check. The security footage, while never publicly released, became something of a legend in hospitality circles. Other business owners started asking for copies of our incident response protocols. But the real victory was quieter, more personal. In the weeks that followed, I noticed something beautiful happening in my dining room. Customers were more polite to the staff, more patient, more respectful. It was as if the universe had course-corrected itself slightly, reminding everyone that the people serving your food are human beings, deserving of basic dignity. The queen bee. Karen never returned, of course, but her reputation preceded her everywhere she went. She learned the hard way that minimum wage jobs are often run by people who matter more than she ever imagined. The lesson was simple, but profound. Respect is not determined by the uniform someone wears, but by the character they display. And sometimes, just sometimes, karma comes with an itemized bill for $4,233.23.